Have you ever thought about why reflecting someone's behavior back at them creates such powerful emotional reactions? Why does copying someone's tactics neutralize those tactics? Why is imitation simultaneously the sincerest form of flattery and the most infuriating form of mockery? This video will change how you see reflection, mimicry, and the invisible power of using people's own weapons against them. Today we're diving into Law 44 from the 48 Laws of Power: disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect. But this isn't just about copying people or reflecting their energy. This is about understanding one of the most psychologically potent tactics in power dynamics, that mirroring someone's behavior, beliefs, or tactics forces them to confront themselves in ways that either disarm them completely or enrage them beyond rational response. That the mirror is a weapon that uses the opponent's own force against them. Let me tell you a story that will reveal everything. In ancient China, a general named Sun Bin faced an enemy commander who was known for his aggressive, rapid attacks. Every army that fought this commander tried to counter his aggression with defensive positions and careful strategy. All failed because they were playing a different game than their opponent. Sun Bin understood something profound: the way to defeat this commander was to mirror him exactly. When the aggressive commander attacked, Sun Bin attacked with equal aggression. When the commander tried his signature rapid movements, Sun Bin matched them precisely. When the commander attempted his usual psychological intimidation, Sun Bin reflected it back perfectly. The enemy commander became confused and frustrated. His tactics, which always worked against defensive opponents, were neutralized by perfect mirroring. More importantly, the commander became enraged. Seeing his own tactics used against him felt like mockery. He started making mistakes, taking unnecessary risks, breaking his own strategic principles. Sun Bin had disarmed the commander's tactical advantage while simultaneously infuriating him into irrational behavior. The mirror effect achieved both objectives: neutralization and emotional destabilization. Sun Bin won the battle not through superior force but through perfect reflection. He used the enemy's own tactics, tempo, and psychology against them. The mirror effect turned the opponent's strengths into weaknesses by forcing confrontation with their own methods. This is the essence of Law 44. The mirror is both shield and sword, simultaneously defending and attacking through pure reflection. This story reveals something fundamental about human psychology and conflict. We develop tactics, strategies, and behaviors that work in our favor. We become skilled at deploying them against others. But we rarely consider how those same tactics would work against us because we're always the ones deploying them, not receiving them. The mirror effect exploits this blind spot by reflecting our own tactics back at us, creating confusion, frustration, and self-confrontation we're not prepared for. Now let me take you back to understand why mirroring has such powerful psychological effects on humans. We evolved sophisticated abilities to read other people's behavior and predict their actions. But these abilities assume others are different from us, that they have different styles, preferences, and patterns. When someone mirrors us perfectly, it breaks our predictive models. We can't distinguish their behavior from our own, which creates cognitive dissonance and emotional discomfort. Moreover, we generally believe our own tactics and behaviors are uniquely justified or effective. When someone mirrors them back at us, it forces us to see those tactics from the outside, as others experience them. If our tactics are annoying, manipulative, or aggressive, seeing them reflected reveals how they appear to others. This self-confrontation is psychologically uncomfortable and often enraging because it challenges our self-perception. The mirror effect also exploits our need for differentiation and uniqueness. We want to see ourselves as special, as having our own distinctive style and approach. When someone mirrors us perfectly, they're denying our uniqueness, treating our special qualities as mere patterns that can be copied. This feels like mockery or theft of identity, which triggers powerful emotional reactions that range from rage to existential anxiety. Your brain today contains all these psychological mechanisms that make mirroring so potent. You're wired to find perfect mirroring either deeply flattering or deeply disturbing depending on context and relationship. Understanding this allows you to deploy the mirror effect strategically to either disarm people you want to influence or infuriate people you want to destabilize. Fast forward to 16th century Europe and we see the mirror effect deployed in political contexts. Queen Elizabeth I of England faced constant pressure from nobles, foreign powers, and religious factions demanding she take positions, make decisions, and commit to specific policies. Each group tried to pressure her using their preferred tactics, whether flattery, threat, moral argument, or political maneuvering. Elizabeth's genius was mirroring each group's tactics and language back at them without committing to their substance. When flatterers praised her, she reflected their flattery while making no promises. When threateners menaced, she reflected their threats while taking no action. When moralists argued principle, she reflected their moral language while maintaining her own course. She mirrored the form of each approach while maintaining complete strategic independence. This mirror effect achieved multiple objectives. It disarmed would-be manipulators by making them feel heard and reflected without actually giving them what they wanted. It neutralized pressure tactics by reflecting them back rather than yielding to them. It created confusion about Elizabeth's actual positions because she reflected everyone's language without committing to anyone's agenda. And it occasionally infuriated those who realized she was mirroring without genuine agreement. Elizabeth maintained extraordinary power through 4 decades partly through this systematic use of the mirror effect. She reflected others' tactics and language so skillfully that people often thought she agreed with them when she was actually maintaining complete independence. The mirror became her primary tool for managing the impossible demands of being an unmarried female monarch in a hostile world. Now let me show you how Law 44 operates in modern negotiation contexts, because mirroring is one of the most effective techniques for both building rapport and neutralizing aggressive tactics. Think about how skilled negotiators handle aggressive counterparts who use high-pressure tactics, artificial deadlines, and emotional manipulation. Inexperienced negotiators either cave to the pressure or resist directly, which creates conflict. Skilled negotiators mirror the tactics back precisely, which neutralizes them. When the aggressive negotiator imposes a deadline, the skilled negotiator reflects the deadline back. We also need this resolved by that date, which means you'll need to make decisions faster too. When the aggressive negotiator makes an extreme demand, the skilled negotiator mirrors with an equally extreme counter-demand. When the aggressive negotiator tries emotional manipulation, the skilled negotiator reflects the emotion right back. The mirroring neutralizes the tactics by making them mutual rather than one-sided pressure. But mirroring in negotiation isn't just defensive. It's also used to build rapport through positive mirroring. Match the other person's tempo, energy, and communication style. If they're analytical and detailed, mirror that style. If they're big picture and emotional, mirror that. The mirroring creates subconscious comfort and connection because people naturally like others who seem similar to themselves. This reveals the dual nature of the mirror effect. Positive mirroring creates rapport, trust, and influence by making people feel understood and similar to you. Negative or tactical mirroring neutralizes attacks and infuriates aggressors by reflecting their own tactics back at them. The same technique serves opposite purposes depending on what you're mirroring and why. The sophisticated negotiator uses both strategically. Mirror positive qualities and behaviors to build rapport. Mirror negative tactics to neutralize them. Switch seamlessly between positive and tactical mirroring based on what the situation requires. The mirror becomes a versatile tool that both attracts and repels depending on what's being reflected. Now here's where this gets really sophisticated, and I need you to pay close attention because this is the twist that changes everything. The mirror effect works even when people know you're mirroring them. Conscious awareness doesn't eliminate the psychological impact. Even knowing they're being mirrored, people still experience the discomfort, confusion, or rapport that mirroring creates. Think about what this means. You can explicitly tell someone you're going to mirror their tactics, and it still works. If they're aggressive, you can say I'm going to match your level of aggression, and then do it. They know you're mirroring deliberately, but it still neutralizes their tactics because they're still confronting their own behavior reflected back. The mirror effect operates at psychological levels that conscious knowledge can't fully defend against. This is unusual among power tactics. Most tactics work through deception or surprise and become ineffective once exposed. But mirroring works through psychological mechanisms that operate even when consciously recognized. You cannot easily defend against someone mirroring you even when you know that's what they're doing, because the mirroring still creates the same cognitive and emotional effects. This suggests that Law 44 is one of the most robust power tactics available. It doesn't depend on deception or hidden manipulation. It works through openly using people's own patterns against them. The transparency doesn't reduce effectiveness because the psychological mechanisms that make mirroring powerful operate largely automatically and unconsciously, even when consciously observed. Let me show you how the mirror effect operates in conflict escalation and de-escalation, because mirroring can either intensify conflicts or diffuse them depending on what aspect of the interaction you mirror. Think about conflicts where one person is escalating through increasingly aggressive behavior. If you mirror the escalation by matching their aggression, you create an escalatory spiral where aggression keeps increasing. This can be strategic if you want to force confrontation or if you have superiority at higher levels of conflict. But it's dangerous because escalation can go beyond what either party intended. But if you mirror their underlying emotion while changing the expression, you can de-escalate. They're angry and aggressive. You mirror the anger but express it calmly. I can see you're really upset about this, and frankly so am I. The mirroring of emotion creates connection and validation, while the different expression models a different way of handling that emotion. This can de-escalate conflicts by acknowledging feelings while changing behaviors. Or if you mirror their stated concerns while ignoring their aggressive tactics, you de-escalate by focusing attention on substance rather than style. They're yelling and making threats. You mirror back their actual concerns in calm language, so your concern is X and Y, let's address those issues. The mirroring of content while not mirroring hostile delivery can shift the interaction from conflict to problem solving. This reveals that what you choose to mirror determines the mirror's effect. Mirror aggression and you escalate. Mirror emotion but not aggression and you validate while de-escalating. Mirror content but not delivery and you redirect to substance. Mirror nothing and you create asymmetry that can feel invalidating. The strategic choice of what to mirror is as important as the decision to mirror at all. The sophisticated operator understands these distinctions and chooses what to mirror based on strategic goals. Want to escalate or establish that you won't be pushed around? Mirror the aggression. Want to de-escalate while building rapport? Mirror the emotion but not the hostility. Want to focus on problem solving? Mirror the content but not the delivery. The mirror can serve any strategic objective through selective reflection. Now let me take you into how the mirror effect operates in organizational and cultural contexts where mirroring competitor strategies can neutralize competitive advantages or where mirroring employee concerns can build trust and resolve conflicts. Think about competitive strategy in business. When a competitor develops a successful approach, other companies face a choice. Ignore it and potentially lose market share. Develop a different approach and risk it being less effective. Or mirror the successful approach and neutralize the competitor's advantage. Many successful companies use strategic mirroring to neutralize competitors. When Walmart developed its logistics and pricing model, competitors who tried completely different approaches struggled. Competitors who mirrored Walmart's approach, developing similar logistics and pricing, at least neutralized that advantage even if they couldn't fully compete. The mirroring prevented Walmart from having unopposed strategic advantage. The mirror effect in competitive strategy means copying what works rather than trying to be uniquely different. Or think about organizational leadership and handling employee concerns. When employees express frustration or concerns, leaders who ignore or dismiss them create resentment. Leaders who mirror the concerns back, showing they hear and understand them, build trust even when they can't fully address the concerns. The mirroring itself creates feeling of being heard and understood, which reduces conflict even when the underlying problems aren't immediately solved. This suggests that strategic mirroring in organizations serves multiple purposes. Competitively, it neutralizes advantages and prevents opponents from establishing unopposed superiority. Internally, it builds rapport, demonstrates understanding, and reduces conflict through validation. The mirror is a tool for both external competition and internal cohesion depending on what you're reflecting and toward whom. Let me take you deeper into the psychology of why seeing ourselves reflected creates such powerful reactions, because understanding the mechanisms at the neurological level reveals why mirroring is so effective and how to deploy it most strategically. Think about what happens in your brain when someone mirrors you. Your mirror neurons, which normally activate when observing others' actions to help you understand their behavior, suddenly don't know whether they're observing self or other. The neural pattern for your own action and the observed mirrored action are nearly identical. This creates confusion at a neurological level about boundaries between self and other. This confusion has profound psychological effects. When we can't clearly distinguish between our actions and someone else's mirrored actions, we experience a kind of identity blurring. Are they copying me or am I copying them? Is this behavior mine or theirs? The ambiguity is cognitively uncomfortable because we rely on clear self-other distinctions to navigate social reality. The mirror effect deliberately creates this ambiguity as a form of psychological pressure. Moreover, the mirroring forces self-awareness. Normally we experience our behavior from the inside, not seeing ourselves as others see us. When someone mirrors us, we suddenly see our own behavior from an external perspective. If our behavior is problematic, aggressive, or annoying, the mirroring reveals this by making us experience what others experience when interacting with us. This forced self-awareness is often uncomfortable or enraging. The rage response to being mirrored, which seems irrational, is actually a defensive reaction to this uncomfortable self-confrontation. Rather than accepting what the mirror reveals about our behavior, we attack the mirror for showing us what we don't want to see. The anger isn't really at the person mirroring. It's at ourselves, displaced onto the mirror because self-anger is psychologically difficult to handle. Understanding these mechanisms allows strategic deployment of mirroring. Use mirroring to create cognitive confusion in opponents who need clear self-other distinction to operate. Use mirroring to force self-awareness on people whose problematic behavior they're not conscious of. Use mirroring to trigger defensive rage that causes mistakes. The psychological effects are predictable and exploitable once you understand the underlying mechanisms. Now let me show you how Law 44 operates in therapeutic and personal growth contexts, because therapists use mirroring to help clients gain self-awareness and change problematic patterns. Think about how effective therapists handle clients with destructive patterns. They don't just tell clients their patterns are problematic, which triggers defensiveness. They mirror the patterns back in ways that help clients see them from external perspective. They might say it sounds like when X happens, you respond with Y, is that accurate? The mirroring helps clients recognize patterns they couldn't see from inside the experience. Or therapists might mirror the client's emotional state to create validation and rapport. Client expresses anxiety and therapist reflects that seems really stressful to experience. The emotional mirroring creates feeling of being understood while also helping clients see their emotion from outside rather than just experiencing it from inside. The external perspective on emotion often helps regulate it. This reveals that mirroring can be a therapeutic tool when used to build awareness and rapport. It's not just a weapon for conflict and competition. The same technique that infuriates in adversarial contexts heals in therapeutic contexts because what matters is the relationship, intention, and what's being mirrored. Mirroring problematic behavior in conflict enrages. Mirroring emotions in therapy validates. The technique is neutral. The effects depend on context and application. The lesson for personal growth is that deliberately seeking mirrors, people and situations that reflect your patterns back to you, accelerates self-awareness and development. The discomfort of seeing yourself reflected is growth opportunity rather than threat if you can manage the defensive reactions that mirroring triggers. Most people avoid mirrors because they're uncomfortable. Sophisticated people seek mirrors because they reveal what internal perspective cannot. Let me take you into how the mirror effect operates in social media and online interactions, because digital communication has created new forms of mirroring with powerful effects on individuals and communities. Think about how social media algorithms mirror user preferences back to them. The algorithm learns what you engage with and shows you more of the same. You see your own preferences, biases, and interests reflected back constantly. This creates echo chambers where everyone's views are mirrored and reinforced by their customized feed. The mirroring is comfortable rather than confrontational because it validates rather than challenges, but this comfortable mirroring has destructive effects. People never see outside perspectives that would challenge their views. They become more extreme because their views are constantly mirrored and validated. They lose ability to understand others because they only see themselves reflected. The algorithmic mirror creates psychological cocoons that feel comfortable but are intellectually and socially limiting. Or think about how trolling and online harassment often use negative mirroring. The troll mirrors someone's argument in exaggerated or mocking form. The harassment campaign mirrors someone's language or tactics back at them in a hostile way. The mirroring is designed to infuriate and destabilize rather than build rapport. The same psychological mechanism that builds connection through positive mirroring creates conflict through negative mirroring. This suggests that digital mirroring is powerful and ubiquitous but often unconscious. Most people don't realize how much their digital environment mirrors their preferences back to them. Most don't consciously recognize mirroring tactics in online conflict. Understanding the mirror effect in digital contexts means recognizing when you're being mirrored, whether positively by algorithms or negatively by trolls, and choosing whether to engage with those mirrors or seek alternative perspectives. Now let me show you how Law 44 operates in the context of imitation and innovation, because mirroring existing approaches can be either strategic copying that neutralizes advantages or uncreative imitation that produces nothing new. Think about how successful companies approach innovation. They don't try to be completely original in everything. They mirror successful approaches from other companies or industries, adapting them to new contexts. Apple mirrored GUI concepts from Xerox. Facebook mirrored social networking concepts from earlier platforms. Google mirrored search and advertising concepts from competitors. The mirroring wasn't uncreative copying. It was strategic adoption of successful patterns. The key is selective mirroring combined with original adaptation. Mirror the successful core elements that give competitors advantage. But adapt and improve rather than copying exactly. The mirroring neutralizes the advantage while the adaptation creates new advantage for yourself. This is sophisticated competition through strategic reflection rather than pure imitation. Compare this to companies that try to be completely original in everything, refusing to mirror any existing approaches. They often fail because they're ignoring proven patterns that work. The pursuit of uniqueness prevents learning from what already succeeds. Or companies that mirror too precisely, creating exact copies that add nothing new. They neutralize competitor advantages but create no advantages of their own, remaining perpetually behind. The sophisticated approach is selective strategic mirroring. Mirror what works while maintaining critical originality in key areas. This creates the benefits of proven approaches while avoiding the weaknesses of pure imitation. The mirror effect in innovation means learning from what exists rather than either slavishly copying it or proudly ignoring it. Let me take you into how the mirror effect operates in parenting and education, because mirroring children's behavior and emotions is crucial for development while mirroring students' thinking patterns helps them learn. Think about how effective parents handle children's emotions. They don't just dismiss or try to logic away feelings. They mirror the emotion back. You seem really frustrated right now. The mirroring validates the emotion and helps the child recognize and name what they're feeling. This emotional mirroring is foundation of emotional intelligence and secure attachment. Children whose emotions are mirrored learn to understand and regulate their feelings. But parents must also mirror behavior to teach consequences. When children are aggressive or rude, mirroring that behavior back in controlled way helps them see how it affects others. You just hit me. Did you notice how that felt? When I speak rudely to you, how do you feel? The mirroring creates empathy by helping children experience their actions from another's perspective. This is how moral development happens through reflected experience. Or in education, effective teachers mirror students' thinking patterns to help them recognize errors and develop better approaches. Student makes logical error and teacher mirrors the logic back. So you're saying if X then Y, does that really follow? The mirroring helps students see their own thinking from outside and recognize the error themselves rather than just being told they're wrong. This reveals that mirroring is an essential developmental and educational tool. Children develop through seeing themselves reflected in parents' responses. Students learn through seeing their thinking reflected by teachers. The mirror is not just power tactic for competition. It's fundamental mechanism of human development and learning. We discover ourselves through seeing ourselves reflected by others. Now let me show you how Law 44 operates at cultural and civilizational levels where cultures mirror each other's strengths and weaknesses, creating both healthy competition and dangerous escalation. Think about how nations respond to rivals' military or economic capabilities. When one nation develops new military technology, rivals mirror the development to avoid disadvantage. This creates arms races where everyone mirrors everyone else's capabilities, escalating to mutually destructive levels. The mirroring is strategic, preventing any one nation from having overwhelming advantage, but the collective effect is wasteful and dangerous. Or economic competition where nations mirror each other's industrial policies, trade practices, and development strategies. Each mirrors what works for others, creating convergence where everyone pursues similar approaches. This mirroring spreads successful practices globally but also spreads failures and creates competitive pressure that reduces everyone to similar strategies rather than allowing diverse approaches. The cultural mirroring operates at deeper levels too. Democracies mirror democratic values and institutions from other democracies. Authoritarian regimes mirror authoritarian tactics from other authoritarian regimes. The mirroring creates ideological blocks where similar systems reinforce each other through mutual reflection. The mirror effect at civilizational scale creates large-scale patterns of convergence and competition. This suggests that strategic mirroring operates at every scale from individual interactions to civilizational competition. The mechanisms are similar. Mirroring neutralizes advantages, creates validation and rapport, or infuriates through forced self-confrontation. The scale changes but the psychological and strategic dynamics remain constant. Understanding Law 44 at individual level teaches you about power at all levels. Let me take you into the specific techniques for deploying the mirror effect strategically, because this is learnable skill rather than just natural mimicry. First technique, precise behavioral mirroring. Match specific behaviors, gestures, tone, and tempo exactly. When they lean forward, you lean forward. When they speak quickly, you speak quickly. When they use certain phrases, you use those phrases. The precision creates uncanny feeling of being reflected that has maximum psychological impact. Approximate mirroring is less effective because it's recognized as mere similarity rather than true reflection. Second technique, strategic timing of mirroring. Don't mirror continuously or the effect becomes background noise. Mirror at strategic moments when you want to create specific effects. Mirror to build rapport when establishing connection. Mirror to neutralize when facing attack. Mirror to infuriate when you want to destabilize opponent. The intermittent strategic mirroring is more powerful than constant mirroring because the on-off pattern keeps target conscious of being reflected. Third technique, selective content mirroring. Choose what to mirror based on strategic goals. Mirror emotions to validate and connect. Mirror tactics to neutralize. Mirror problematic behaviors to create awareness. Mirror strengths to flatter and disarm. You're not mirroring everything indiscriminately. You're selecting what to reflect based on what effect you want to create. Fourth technique, exaggerated mirroring for mockery. When you want to infuriate or delegitimize someone, mirror their behavior in slightly exaggerated form. The exaggeration makes the mirroring obvious and reveals it as mockery rather than sincere reflection. This is highly effective for enraging opponents but destroys any possibility of rapport. Use only when conflict is goal rather than connection. Fifth technique, delayed mirroring for surprise. Don't mirror immediately. Wait and mirror something they did earlier in the interaction. The delayed reflection creates surprise because they've moved on and suddenly see their earlier behavior reflected back out of context. The delay makes the mirroring more noticeable and often more impactful because it's unexpected. Sixth technique, mirroring while stating disagreement. Say you're going to mirror their approach while disagreeing with their position. I'm going to take the same aggressive stance you just took, though I completely disagree with your argument. This makes the mirroring explicit and strategic rather than unconscious, which prevents them from using your mirroring as evidence of agreement while still getting the psychological effects of mirroring. These techniques transform mirroring from natural mimicry into strategic weapon. You're not just unconsciously copying others. You're deliberately reflecting specific things at specific times for specific strategic purposes. The conscious strategic deployment is what makes the mirror effect a power tactic rather than just social behavior. Now let me address the ethical dimensions of using the mirror effect, because deliberate mirroring can feel manipulative even when it's not technically deceptive. When is mirroring ethical? When you're mirroring to build genuine rapport, to help someone gain self-awareness, or to defend against aggressive tactics by reflecting them back. These uses serve mutual benefit or legitimate defense. They're ethical uses of a neutral technique. The mirroring creates effects that benefit both parties or protect you from harm. When is mirroring unethical? When you're mirroring to deceive about your actual agreement or feelings, to manipulate someone into trusting you falsely, or to escalate conflict beyond what's necessary. These uses exploit the psychological effects of mirroring for one-sided benefit at others' expense. The technique itself isn't unethical, but using it to exploit or harm others is. The key ethical distinction is intention and outcome. Are you using mirroring to create genuine connection, mutual understanding, or legitimate defense? Or are you using it to deceive, manipulate, or unnecessarily harm? The same technique serves ethical purposes in some contexts and unethical purposes in others. The ethics depend on how and why you use the mirror, not whether you use it at all. Most real situations exist in gray areas. You might mirror to build rapport with someone you're negotiating against, seeking advantage through connection. Is this ethical competitive behavior or manipulative deception? It depends partly on whether you're honest about the competitive context and whether the rapport provides mutual benefit even within competition. The ethics require judgment rather than simple rules. Let me show you one extended final case study that demonstrates Law 44 operating at the highest level of strategic sophistication. During World War II, British intelligence used mirroring tactics against Nazi Germany with devastating effectiveness. When Germany developed intelligence networks in Britain, British intelligence didn't just arrest the spies. They captured them and turned them into double agents who mirrored German intelligence techniques back at Germany. The captured spies sent false information using the same methods, codes, and patterns that German intelligence expected. The mirroring was so precise that Germany believed their intelligence operations were succeeding when they were actually being fed British misinformation. The deception was strategic mirroring at multiple levels. British intelligence mirrored German operational procedures, communication patterns, and even the personality profiles of the agents. They mirrored German strategic thinking to predict what intelligence Germany would find believable. They mirrored the timing and quality of real intelligence to make the false intelligence credible. Every aspect of the intelligence operation was mirrored back perfectly while being inverted to serve British interests. The result was operations like Fortitude, which convinced Germany that D-Day landings would occur at Pas-de-Calais rather than Normandy. The mirrored intelligence was so convincing that Germany kept major forces away from the actual landing sites. British intelligence had weaponized the mirror effect, using German intelligence operations against Germany by reflecting them back with inverted content. This demonstrates Law 44 at maximum sophistication. The British didn't just counter German intelligence. They mirrored it so perfectly that Germany couldn't distinguish the reflection from reality. The mirror became a weapon that used Germany's own capabilities against them. This is the ultimate application of the mirror effect, turning opponents' strengths into weaknesses through perfect reflection that inverts purpose while maintaining form. So as we close this comprehensive exploration of Law 44, understand that the mirror effect is one of the most psychologically powerful and strategically versatile tactics available. It works through fundamental mechanisms of human psychology that operate even when consciously recognized. It serves multiple purposes, from building rapport to neutralizing tactics to infuriating opponents. Master the strategic use of mirroring. Learn to reflect behaviors, emotions, tactics, and patterns precisely. Understand what to mirror and what to ignore based on strategic goals. Know when to mirror to disarm and when to mirror to infuriate. Recognize when you're being mirrored and choose whether to engage with the reflection or break the mirror. The mirror reveals truth while serving power. It forces self-confrontation while enabling strategic advantage. It creates connection while maintaining independence. It's simultaneously defensive and offensive, passive and active, revealing and concealing. The mirror is the most paradoxical weapon in the arsenal of power because it uses nothing but pure reflection to achieve concrete effects. Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect. Reflect people back to themselves and watch them either embrace the reflection or shatter, trying to destroy the mirror. Use their own force against them. Make their tactics neutralize themselves. Force self-confrontation that creates awareness or rage. Master the mirror and you master one of power's most elegant and effective tools. But let me take you even deeper into the advanced applications of mirroring and how the most sophisticated operators use multiple layers of reflection simultaneously to create complex psychological effects that go beyond simple imitation. Think about what happens when you mirror not just someone's behavior but their entire strategic approach. They're using a specific overall strategy, whether in business, relationships, or conflict. Instead of just mirroring individual tactics, you mirror the entire strategic framework. This creates a meta-level reflection where they see their whole approach reflected back, which is far more psychologically potent than surface-level behavioral mirroring. For example, if someone is using a strategy of slow, methodical pressure designed to gradually wear you down, you don't just mirror individual pressure tactics. You reflect back the entire approach of slow, methodical, escalating pressure. They suddenly find themselves in the exact situation they were trying to create for you. Their strategy becomes their own burden. The meta-level mirroring forces them to experience what they intended others to experience. Or if someone is using a strategy of constant unpredictability to keep others off balance, you mirror the unpredictability back. They wanted to be the only source of chaos in the interaction. Now chaos is mutual and bilateral. Their strategic advantage of being the unpredictable actor disappears because both parties are unpredictable. The mirroring neutralizes the strategic asymmetry they were exploiting. This meta-level strategic mirroring is more sophisticated than tactical mirroring because it operates at the level of approach and philosophy rather than just behavior. It forces confrontation with someone's entire way of operating rather than just specific actions. This creates deeper psychological effects because it challenges fundamental approach rather than surface tactics. The defense against meta-level mirroring requires flexibility and willingness to change entire strategic approaches rather than just modifying tactics. Most people can't do this because they're committed to their strategic approach as part of their identity. The meta-mirror traps them in their own strategy, which becomes a cage when reflected back rather than an advantage when uniquely deployed. Now let me show you how Law 44 operates in the context of cultural appropriation debates, because these controversies are fundamentally about when mirroring is viewed as flattering versus insulting or exploitative. Think about the intense emotions around cultural appropriation. When dominant culture members adopt elements of marginalized cultures, it's seen as theft and insult rather than flattery or appreciation. Why? Because the mirroring occurs in a power asymmetry. The dominant culture can mirror selectively, taking what it finds attractive while leaving oppressive contexts behind. The marginalized culture can't reciprocate effectively because the power differential makes the mirroring non-mutual. This reveals that mirroring's effects depend heavily on power dynamics and mutuality. When equals mirror each other, it creates connection and healthy competition. When power asymmetries exist, mirroring by the powerful feels like mockery, exploitation, or erasure to the less powerful. The same action of cultural mirroring produces completely different psychological and social effects based on who's mirroring whom. Moreover, when the powerful mirror the powerless, they often mirror selectively and superficially. They take aesthetic elements while ignoring historical context, struggle, and meaning. This selective mirroring feels like theft because it extracts value while discarding significance. The mirror distorts rather than accurately reflects, which adds insult to the injury of non-mutual power dynamics. This suggests that ethical mirroring requires awareness of power dynamics and commitment to accurate, respectful reflection rather than selective extraction. Mirror the whole, not just attractive parts. Mirror with understanding of context and meaning. Mirror in ways that honor rather than exploit. The mirror can be a tool of connection or weapon of erasure depending on how power and selection operate. Let me take you into how the mirror effect operates in addiction and destructive patterns where mirroring someone's self-destructive behavior can be an intervention technique called therapeutic mirroring. Think about how interventionists sometimes handle addicts in denial. They don't argue about whether there's a problem. They mirror the addict's justifications and rationalizations back in ways that help the addict hear how they sound. You're saying you don't have a problem because you only drink on weekends. That's similar to what I hear from many people who ultimately need help. Is that the standard you want to hold yourself to? The mirroring isn't mocking. It's reflective. The interventionist is holding up an accurate mirror to help the addict see their patterns from outside rather than just experiencing them from inside. The discomfort of seeing their rationalizations reflected often creates the breakthrough moment where denial cracks and willingness to change emerges. Or in relationships where one partner has destructive patterns, the other partner might mirror the behavior to demonstrate its impact. If you treat me with silence and withdrawal, I'll do the same to you so you experience what it feels like. This mirroring can be manipulative and escalate dysfunction. But it can also be clarifying, helping someone see how their behavior affects others by experiencing it directly. The key is whether the mirroring serves awareness and growth or just retaliation and escalation. Therapeutic mirroring aims to create insight that enables change. Retaliatory mirroring aims to punish and often just creates a spiral of mutual destructiveness. Same technique, completely different intentions and outcomes. This reveals that mirroring destructive patterns is a high-risk approach that can either catalyze change or accelerate breakdown. It should be used carefully, with clear intention toward growth rather than revenge, and ideally with support structures that can help process the confrontation that mirroring creates. Mirroring someone's worst traits back at them is powerful medicine that can heal or poison depending on dosage and context. Now let me show you how Law 44 operates in artistic and creative contexts where mirroring styles, genres, or techniques can be either homage, pastiche, or mockery depending on execution and intention. Think about how artists reference and mirror previous artists' work. When done well, it's homage that honors influence while adding new perspective. When done poorly, it's derivative copying that adds nothing. When done satirically, it's pastiche that mocks through exaggerated mirroring. The same action of mirroring another artist produces completely different effects and meanings. Quentin Tarantino mirrors genres, shots, and techniques from exploitation films and martial arts cinema. But he recombines and transforms them into something new that honors sources while being distinctly his own work. The mirroring is creative dialogue with film history rather than mere copying. His references reflect deep understanding and appreciation that transforms what's mirrored. Compare this to artists who mirror successful styles without understanding or transforming them. They produce work that feels hollow because the mirroring is superficial extraction rather than deep engagement. The mirror is empty, reflecting form without substance. This kind of mirroring is artistic dead end that produces nothing of value. Or satirists who mirror cultural products and styles in exaggerated form to expose absurdities. Saturday Night Live mirrors political figures in ways that reveal through comic exaggeration. The mirroring is mockery, but it's insightful mockery that helps audiences see what they might miss about the original. The mirror distorts deliberately to clarify rather than deceive. This suggests that creative mirroring succeeds when it adds perspective, understanding, or transformation to what's reflected. Pure copying fails because it adds nothing. Insightful mirroring succeeds because reflection becomes lens that reveals new dimensions of what's mirrored. The mirror in art is valuable when it's active interpretation rather than passive replication. Let me take you into how the mirror effect operates in legal and argumentative contexts where mirroring opposing arguments can be a devastating rhetorical technique. Think about how skilled lawyers handle opposing arguments. They don't just counter-argue. They mirror the logic of opposing arguments in contexts where that logic leads to absurd or unacceptable conclusions. If your argument is true here, then by the same logic this other absurd conclusion must also be true. The mirroring reveals flaws by extending the logic rather than directly attacking it. Or in debate, mirroring the opponent's rhetorical techniques can neutralize those techniques while demonstrating their problematic nature. Opponent uses emotional appeals rather than logical argument. Skilled debater mirrors the emotional appeal approach while showing how easily it can be used to support opposite conclusions. The mirroring demonstrates that the technique isn't actually probative, neutralizing its effectiveness. This rhetorical mirroring is particularly effective because it doesn't require you to prove your opponent wrong directly. You just show how their own logic or techniques lead to conclusions they wouldn't accept. The mirroring makes the argument self-refuting rather than requiring external refutation. This is elegant and often devastating because the opponent is essentially defeated by their own approach. The defense against rhetorical mirroring requires logical consistency and careful limitation of one's claims to avoid overreach that can be mirrored to absurdity. Most people make broader claims and use looser logic than they realize. Rhetorical mirroring exploits this sloppiness by taking their logic seriously and extending it faithfully. The mirror reveals what they actually implied rather than what they consciously intended. Now let me show you how Law 44 operates at the level of systems and institutions where mirroring organizational structures, policies, or procedures can expose their problems or can create beneficial competitive pressure. Think about how reform movements use mirroring to expose institutional problems. They create alternative institutions that mirror the structure of established ones but operate according to different principles. The mirroring allows direct comparison where the problems of the original become visible against the alternative. The mirror makes problems visible that were invisible within the original system. Or how regulatory agencies sometimes use mirroring techniques to understand industries they regulate. They simulate or model industry practices to understand them from inside. This mirroring creates insight that external observation cannot provide. The regulator learns by reflecting the industry back to itself through their simulation, which reveals dynamics that industry might prefer to keep obscure. Or how competitive pressure between similar institutions creates mirroring that drives improvement. Universities mirror each other's successful programs. Hospitals mirror best practices. Companies mirror competitor innovations. The mirroring creates convergence toward effective approaches while driving overall improvement through competitive copying. Everyone mirrors everyone else's successes, raising the baseline through mutual reflection. This institutional mirroring suggests that reflection operates at every level of social organization. Just as individuals mirror each other, institutions mirror institutions. The same psychological and strategic dynamics of mirroring apply whether the actors are people or organizations. Understanding mirroring at individual level teaches you about organizational dynamics and vice versa. Let me take you into how the mirror effect operates in technological competition and standards wars where mirroring compatibility or creating reflecting technology shapes entire industries. Think about how technology standards emerge through mirroring. One company develops successful technology. Others mirror it to ensure compatibility. Eventually the mirrored standard becomes universal because everyone is reflecting the same original. Microsoft Windows became dominant partly because everyone mirrored compatibility with it, making it the universal standard through mutual reflection. Or how companies use mirroring to neutralize competitors' platform advantages. Android mirrored iOS capabilities to prevent Apple from having unopposed mobile dominance. The mirroring didn't make Android identical to iOS, but it matched core features closely enough to prevent iOS from being uniquely capable. The strategic mirroring neutralized platform advantage through reflection. Or how China's technological development strategy involves systematic mirroring of Western technologies. Study, reverse engineer, reproduce, then innovate beyond. The mirroring allows rapid development by learning from what others already discovered. Then indigenous innovation builds on the mirrored foundation. The mirror becomes stepping stone rather than endpoint. This technological mirroring reveals strategic principle that applies broadly. You don't need to invent everything originally. Mirror what works, then innovate at the margins. The mirroring establishes baseline capability while conserving innovation resources for genuine advances rather than recreating what others already achieved. The mirror is educational tool as much as competitive weapon. Now let me address the question of whether constant mirroring diminishes authenticity or whether strategic mirroring is compatible with genuine self-expression. Some argue that strategic mirroring makes you inauthentic, constantly performing reflections of others rather than expressing yourself genuinely. If you're always mirroring others, where's your authentic self? This criticism has force. Constant mirroring can indeed lead to loss of authentic center as you become pure reflection of others with no stable self. But sophisticated mirroring is selective and strategic, not constant and comprehensive. You mirror specific things in specific contexts for specific purposes. You maintain authentic core self while tactically reflecting others when strategic value justifies it. The mirroring is conscious tool deployment rather than identity replacement. You know you're mirroring. You choose what to mirror. You return to authentic center between mirroring episodes. Moreover, complete authenticity without any mirroring is actually impossible and undesirable. We all learn by mirroring others. We develop capabilities by reflecting teachers and mentors. We build social connection through unconscious mirroring of those we interact with. The question isn't whether to mirror but whether mirroring is conscious and strategic versus unconscious and automatic. The sophisticated person mirrors consciously when strategic value justifies it while maintaining authentic core identity that guides what, when, and how to mirror. They're neither purely authentic, which would be socially isolated and developmentally stunted, nor purely reflective, which would be empty performance without genuine self. They balance authentic self-expression with strategic mirroring based on context and goals. Let me show you one more extended case study that demonstrates Law 44 operating across multiple dimensions with sophisticated strategic awareness. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union and United States mirrored each other's capabilities and rhetoric in ways that both sustained the competition and prevented catastrophic conflict. Militarily, each side mirrored the other's weapons development. Nuclear weapons, missiles, submarines, everything was matched to prevent either side from having overwhelming advantage. The mirroring created arms race that was expensive and dangerous, but it also created parity that prevented war. The mutual reflection maintained balance through forcing each side to match what the other achieved. Ideologically, each side mirrored the other's claims and critiques. America claimed to represent freedom, USSR mirrored with claims to represent equality. Each critiqued the other's system, which mirrored with counter-critiques. The ideological mirroring created propaganda war, but it also forced each system to address its own failings that the mirror revealed. The reflection served both competition and improvement. Diplomatically, each side mirrored the other's alliance building and international engagement. NATO was mirrored by Warsaw Pact. American interventions were mirrored by Soviet interventions. The diplomatic mirroring created global competition, but it also created predictable patterns that allowed management of the rivalry. Each side could predict the other through the mirror. The entire Cold War was sustained mirroring at civilizational scale. Each superpower reflected the other's capabilities, rhetoric, and actions. The mirroring prevented either side from achieving dominance while driving technological and social development through competition. When the USSR could no longer maintain the mirror, matching American capabilities, the Cold War ended not through war but through collapse of one reflection. This demonstrates that mirroring can sustain long-term strategic relationships, whether cooperative or competitive. The mutual reflection creates stability through balance even as it drives escalation through matching. Understanding Law 44 helps you see how major historical dynamics operate through reflection and how those reflections can both sustain and eventually end when one side can no longer maintain the mirror. So as we absolutely finally close this comprehensive exploration of Law 44, understand that mirroring is fundamental to human psychology, social interaction, conflict, cooperation, development, and strategy at every scale. We learn through mirroring teachers. We connect through mirroring those we like. We compete through mirroring opponents. We defend through mirroring attackers. The mirror is a universal tool that serves nearly every human purpose. Master selective strategic mirroring. Learn when to reflect to build rapport versus when to reflect to neutralize attacks versus when to reflect to infuriate and destabilize. Understand what to mirror, surface behaviors or deep strategies. Know when to mirror precisely for maximum impact versus when to mirror with exaggeration for mockery versus when to refuse mirroring to maintain distinctiveness. Recognize when you're being mirrored and choose how to respond. Being mirrored can be flattering validation or infuriating mockery depending on context and relationship. You can embrace the reflection, modify your behavior to change what's reflected, or break the mirror by doing something unexpected that cannot be reflected. Your awareness of being mirrored gives you choice rather than automatic reaction. The mirror is simultaneously ancient and modern, simple and sophisticated, passive and active, defensive and offensive. It's the most paradoxical tool in power's arsenal because it does nothing but reflect, yet that reflection creates concrete psychological and strategic effects that shape outcomes. The mirror reveals while it conceals, disarms while it infuriates, connects while it separates. Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect. Master reflection as both shield and sword. Use others' force against them through perfect reflection. Force self-confrontation that creates awareness or rage. Build rapport through positive reflection. Neutralize through tactical reflection. Destabilize through strategic reflection. The mirror is everything and nothing, pure reflection that creates concrete power. That's Law 44.